Hello students, I am here with another video from the chapter Windstorms and Cyclones from the class 7th NCERT book. So before starting today's video, I would like to tell you all that till now we have discussed many topics which was related with the windstorms and cyclones. Then in this we discussed about the properties of air. Then we discussed about the pressure difference is also created because of uneven surface heating of the sea as well as the land, and we have seen that there is uneven heating on the equator as well as on the poles. Then because of the pressure difference, because of the large pressure difference, we have also seen that if the pressure difference is large, then the wind speed is also increased, and because of the increased speed of winds, the destructive phenomena such as storms, cyclones and thunderstorms are going to come. Okay, so with that we have also seen that how to take precautions during these types of natural calamities. Now with this the explanation part of this chapter is over, and we are going to revise the chapter once again according to your NCERT book and point wise, which is given at the end of your lesson, and then we are going to see the exercises about this chapter. So in this video I will tell you about the things which we have learnt, and then we will discuss the question answers. So the first point about the chapter says air around us exerts pressure. So in this topic we have seen various experiment that whenever the air is present in a closed surrounding, means if it is blown into the balloon, then what happens if you are going to blow more air inside the balloon bursts. Okay, so why does this balloon burst? Because air was applying pressure on this balloon and on the sides of the walls, because of which more and more pressure was present inside the balloon if you are blowing air inside it, and it got burst. Similarly, if the tire tube is there of your bicycle, in which air is there, if air is not there, it is very difficult for you to ride on the bicycle. Now if air is not present in the tire, then it has to be increased by the help of the pump, because of which you are filling the air inside that. Similarly, air is also exerting pressure when it is present inside the football, or we can have numerous of examples. We have seen numerous of examples in this topic. Now the second point says that air expands on heating and contracts on cooling. So what happens? Air expands on heating. In this also we have seen the experiment that when we were heating some water in the test tube, which was causing steam, and it was expanding, and it went inside the dropper also. So the experiments which we have seen could be related with many topics as at the same time. Then the next point is also about warm air rises up when it is whereas comparatively cooler air tends to sink towards the earth's surface. So this we have seen very well in the land breeze and the sea breeze. Okay, because of which land and sea breeze is caused, and that is why even the surface heating is also the evaporation also is taking place because of the same thing. Fine. And then in this experiment we have seen that whenever the empty paper cups were heated up, so what happens? The surrounding air got heated up, and it went inside that paper cup, and then the paper cup which was having the hot air, it became lighter and it started rising up, and then the side which was having the cooler air, it start moving towards the other it was pushed towards the downside. Now this was happening because the hot air always tends to rise up. Okay, so warmer air rises up, air pressure of the place is decreased, and the cooler air then moves to that place. So what happens? As soon as this warm air is rising up, because of the more heat, because of the sun's heat, or it could be because of any purpose. So here in this chapter we have seen only about the sun's heat, which is responsible for creating the low pressure at the place, because of which it has reduced the air pressure of that place. Okay, now as soon as the pressure was reduced, then what has happened? The cooler air from the sides of the sides of the place has got filled inside it. So because of which it has happened that the uneven surface heating is taking place. Fine. Now air at the equator, it was told that at the equator the sun is shining at a very greater rate. So what happens, it is going to heat up the equator very fast, as well as these poles which are present far away from the surface of the equator, the sun rays is not reaching because its distance is more, because of which the equator part has underwent the low pressure area, which was filled by the polar air, which was already cool in the nature. And we have to remember that hot air is creating low pressure and cold air has high pressure. Okay, cold air has high pressure. So that is why it is termed as warm air is going to rise up as air pressure at a place is more. Okay, then we have seen about the next point, that moving air is called wind. Now because of this moving air, how this air was moving, it is moving because of the pressure difference. Now as soon as the pressure was different in the nature, means pressure was more and less, then only the wind started blowing. And when the wind started blowing, why it was started to blow? Because low pressure area is created. Then what happens, all the air molecule rises up and it creates a space, and that space was filled by the cold air. Okay, so when the space was created, so it was always filled by the cold air, because of which what has happened, that the cold air has taken up all the place and the wind started blowing. That is why it is termed as the moving air is called wind. And it is very much clear that if pressure difference is more, speed of the wind is also more. Okay, now if wind speed is more, then pressure difference is more, or you could say that pressure difference is more, it means it is because of the low pressure which has been created at a larger extent. Next thing is that, and now speed only decides whether a cyclone is there, whether a tornado is there, or whether only thunderstorms are coming. So it depends upon the speed of the wind. Next is uneven heating on the earth is a main cause of wind to blow. Yes, this I have told you, that equator is having there is very much difference in the or there is uneven heating at the two places. First is that it is on the land and the sea, as well as we have seen the uneven heating is also taking place at the equator and the pole levels. So when the equator is being heated up very soon, because of the sun's rays are coming directly over the equator, and it is not reaching at the proper time on the poles, because of which the globe is not heating up properly, and only the equator is the place where the low pressure is created. Okay, and then it is being filled up by the polar airs, because of which winds are going to blow. Next is wind carries water vapor and brings rainfall. Now this point says that wind is carrying water vapor with them. Why it is carrying water vapor with them? Because wind is caused because of the vaporization of the water. Now when the sun is shining over the surface of the land as well as on the sea, the air becomes hot, as well as if it is present near the water bodies, then it is taking up the moisture also from the water surface of the water bodies. Okay, now if on the coastal region if we are living, then we can feel that it is much more humid as compared to the land area. So why that coastal area is much more humid? It is much more humid because the air is carrying the moisture with it, and if moisture becomes high, if this moisture is higher in the air, then what happens? It brings rain. Why it is going to bring rain? As you know that moisture is present, it forms clouds, and if clouds in turn brings rainfall. So that is why the air which is carrying moisture also brings the rainfall. Next is that high speed winds and the air pressure difference causes cyclones. Yes, so whenever high speed winds are there, now why these high speed winds are there? It is because of the low pressure which has been created by the uneven surface heating. Okay, so this uneven surface heating which is causing the low pressure to develop at much more higher rate. So because of the low pressure, when it is persistent for a longer period, means it is going to remain in that condition only, means low pressure is going to remain at a very large area for a greater time, then what happens, there is much more likeliness of the cyclones to be caused. Okay, it brings thunderstorms also, as well as it may cause cyclones. Now, what are cyclones? Cyclones were the weather condition where it was developed inside the sea, where the low pressure was at a higher rate. So what happens, the water starts swelling and it started coming out. When it comes on land, it causes very much destruction. Okay, next is that it becomes easier to monitor the cyclones with the help of advanced technology like satellites and radars. So these technologies are present, which are helping you all, or helping us to find out that whether the cyclones are coming or whether any kind of natural calamity is coming which is related with the wind. So weather forecasting is always done with the help of these means these information which is being given by the radars and the satellites, which comes under the advanced technologies. Okay, now with the help of these only we can monitor, and we can even safeguard the things also. There will be less destruction of the life and the property of the people. Now if we are saving all these things if the time is there, then there will be less destruction. Fine. Now if you know that if the cyclones are coming and forecast is coming over the television, or it could be coming on the radios, or it could be in the newspapers, so you should not overhear it. We should always follow the instructions which are given in these warnings. So if water is having these types of cyclones which are arising from there, so one should not go for fishing or the occupation which is related with the coastal areas. So we should always stay away from these parts. Fine. Next is that if there is time, then you should evacuate the place and go to the safer place even. Next is self-help is the best help. Now why it is said that self-help means you should always be ready. You should always be ready for for facing these kinds of natural disaster. Okay, why we should always face such kind of natural disaster? We should always be ready in these kinds of natural disaster, because we never know that what kind of destruction it might bring. It could be lesser, it could be more. So we should always be prepared. If we are prepared enough, we can take the things with us, which is very important. We should always plan the things in advance, so that it's just not difficult at the last moment when the things are going to arise. Okay, so therefore it is better to plan in advance and be ready with the defense against any approaching cyclone. So it is very much important to be ready with the emergency kits, as well as food and clean drinking water, because of which we should always be defending against these kinds of approaching cyclones. Next is that following the flow chart. Following the flow chart, we will help to understand the phenomenon which leads to the formation of clouds, and then following rainfall and creation of cyclones and storms. Okay, now next part is the flow chart, which is given in your book, which is going to tell you about that how these winds and cyclones are being formed. Fine. Then this chart is saying the formation of cyclones, how these cyclones are formed. Cyclones are even first wind is formed, then how are these wind turned into the cyclones and thunderstorms. So the first point is that, which is very important, because of which this is the main cause of the formation of wind and the cyclone. The first point says difference in the temperature between two regions. Now why there is the need of difference in the temperature? Because if there is no temperature, it means if temperature difference is not there, then wind is not going to blow. As we have seen in the chapter, that uneven surface heating is also causing the winds to blow. That is why it is very much necessary a temperature difference, which sets the convectional current in the air. Okay, next thing is that once the convectional current in the air is set up, means so the circulation of the wind starts taking place, which we have seen as the hot air is becoming lighter and it rises up, and cold air from the above side, it is going to fill the region which is present on the below side. Okay, so this is it sets the convection in the air. Next is that warm air rises and it is creating a low pressure area. Now once the warm air it becomes lighter and it rises up. Okay, when it rises up, it is going to create some space. When space is created, then the cold air is going to flow and it is going to fill that complete pressure. It is going to completely fill that area. Now warm air is, whenever it is rising, it is creating low pressure. This is the point, this is one of the more important point, one of the important point to be remembered, that hot air is always creating low pressure. Next is that we see that cool air converges at the low pressure area. Now once the air is being cooled, then it is going to cover up the complete area of which is created by the low pressure. Next we can see that warm air is going to rise, and cool air and the water vapor, it condenses to form the clouds. Now the clouds are being formed because of the much more evaporation in the air. Okay, so whenever the water vapor is rising up, it is forming the clouds. Now once the clouds are formed, bigger the water droplets in the clouds, the bigger water droplets in the clouds fall on the ground in the form of rain, hail and snow. Okay, so precipitation happens. This we have learned very well in the water cycle, that whenever evaporation takes place, it is followed by condensation, and condensation, then precipitation happens. Okay, cloud is formed and then precipitation happens in the form of rain, hail and snow. Next is that water falling droplets and rising air moves vigorously to produce thunderstorms. So whenever the thunderstorms are produced, it is very fast moving air which is arising up. Okay, next is that whenever under weather certain conditions, storm may develop into cyclones. When the air pressure is very much lowered, then it develops into a cyclone which is coming from the water bodies. It is going to arise from the water bodies, and we have seen that cyclones have various names, and these are the most common phenomenon which is happening on the earth at various places. And then it is and there are many places where these cyclones are known by different names, like typhoons, and we have seen hurricanes. So all these are the names, and I have given a list of names also which you could revise once again by going on to that particular video. Next we are with this, the revision of this chapter means we have seen the chapter at glance, and now we are going to see this was a recap of the chapter. Now we will go on to the exercises which is given at the back of the book, means which is given at the end of this chapter. So the first part of this exercise is the fill in the blanks. You have to fill the missing words in the blank spaces in the following statements. The first one is that wind is a dash air. So it's very easy. What is wind? Wind is a moving air. So you will fill here, in the first point you will fill the word moving. So wind is moving air. So in this you will fill moving. Okay, next B is the winds are generated due to dash heating of the earth's heating on the earth. So this we have seen that it is because of uneven heating on the earth. Okay, next C, near the earth's surface, dash air rises up whereas dash air comes down. So this is the third fact about the air, that when near the earth's surface, warm air or hot air rises up. Okay, warm air rises up, and whereas the cool air comes down. Or we can write that hot air rises up and the cold air comes down. Both will be the correct answer. It could be the warmer air rises up whereas the cooler air comes down. So both will be, three of the answers will be correct in this blank. Next we will see about the D, fill in the blanks, that is the fourth fill in the blanks. Air moves from a region of dash pressure to a region of dash pressure. So it is again a very easy blank, that air is always moving from a region of high pressure to low pressure. Okay, so that is why we have seen the winds were blowing because of the movement of the air from high pressure to low pressure. That is why cold air was coming downside, where the empty space was made by the help of the hot air which was rising up. Next is that you have to suggest, second question is saying you have to suggest two methods to find out the wind direction at a given place. So you can find out the wind direction by two ways. So you have to tell the two methods. So the first one is that The first, you can use wind vanes or anemometer. So these are the two instruments which you could which is going to tell you the wind directions. So nowadays wind vanes are used, which is going to tell you the direction of the wind. So the first thing is that you could use the measuring instrument, this measuring instrument which is called wind vane. Okay, wind vane, VANE. Fine. Next, you can use the second step, means second method could be in the form of experiments, like you can fly a kite in the direction the kite is going to fly. It is going to tell the wind direction. Then next, you can do that, you can take some fine and lighter sand in your hand and let it slowly slip off from your hand. Now if the movement of the dust particles are in a particular direction, that direction is going to tell you the wind, in the direction of the wind in which it is flowing. Or you could just take a bits of paper in the palm, and then you have to throw those bits of paper in the air. You will see that in which direction these paper bits are going to move, in the same direction the wind is also flowing. So you can suggest any of the two methods which is given, which I have discussed just now, that either using wind vanes you can tell, or even you can use the various experimental methods by which you could tell the direction of the wind. The third question is now, state two experiences that made you think that air exerts pressure other than those which are given in the text. So you have to write some more experience which is not given in your text, that air exerts pressure. So in this, see, in the text it was given that air was exerting pressure on the tire tube and in the football, and it was when it was in the balloon, then it burst the balloon because of the air was exerting pressure. So you could write some more experiments or some more activities, like tree leaves and the branches, they are going to move due to the pressure exerted by the air in the form of wind. Okay, wind also, the branches also starts coming down or up. It is moving, it is showing you the movement because of the air pressure which is exerted by the air on these branches. Or you could write it is very difficult to drive the bicycle against the air, or you could row a boat against the air, means against the wind. So these are the experiments, or these are the experiences which you could write. Or you could write some more experience which is related with the air is going to exert pressure. Now next, fourth question is, you want to buy a house, which house you would like to buy which is having windows, means would you like to buy a house having windows but no ventilators? Explain your answer. So are you ready to buy a house which is having windows but it is not having ventilators? So the answer would be, I think answer should come from your side, that whether you should buy such a house that is not having the ventilators. So answer is always answer will be always no, that we are not going to buy such a house which is having a window but it is not having ventilators. So are these ventilators so important? Yes, we have discussed in the chapter also that ventilators are always placed at the it is always placed at a greater height of the house. Why it is placed always at the higher point of the house, or it is just above the windows? Because it is going to make the hot air go out from your house. Okay, why because when we are living, we are doing various activities like cooking and all. So because of the warm air, the air inside the room also becomes warmer. So this warm air is always in a low pressure which is going to rise up. Okay, it becomes lighter and it rises up. And if ventilators are not present, then what will happen? No air is going to move out. That is why ventilators are very important in the house, because of which the temperature of the house will be maintained. So you are not going to buy such a house which is having windows but no ventilator. So the answer will be like this: smoke from the kitchen and the warm air becomes lighter and it rises up. And if there is no outlet like ventilators, it would be difficult to escape the warm air and it is going to heat up the room, and it is also cause the suffocation and discomfort. So if you're living in such a house which is having no ventilators at all, then it will be a cause of suffocation and discomfort. Okay, next is the fifth question. Explain why holes are made in the hanging banners and hoardings. Now this is again a very easy question, that why the hoardings are having holes in them. I think you all have seen such a hoarding, means posters are which are placed there uh, in the streets, and which are placed on the poles of the streets, and if it is present, it is a large poster, then we have seen that there are holes made in between them. So why these holes are made on hanging banners and hoardings? So these holes are very important because air exerts pressure in all the direction. Okay, means air is going to it is going to apply pressure on these banners and hoardings in all the direction. Then what will happen, if the banners and holdings do not have holes, then the pressure exerted by the wind may tear them off. Okay, so this is the very common point which you could see, that in the large banners and hoardings they have holes in between them. Many holes are present. Why these holes are there? Because air is exerting pressure, and if these holes are present, the air would be easily passing off from these holes. And if the holes are not made, then what happens, it is going to tear off the banners into two pieces, or it could not be it is not going to give the information for which it was being placed there on the streets. Okay, so the answer would be like this. Air exerts pressure in all the direction. If banners and holdings do not have holes, then pressure from the wind is also exerted it is also exerted from all the directions on these banners and hoardings. Then it may tear them off and make them fall. So holes let the air to pass through and reduce the air pressure on banners and hoardings. Okay, so this is the answer for this question. Next is that question number 6. How will you help your neighbors in the case of cyclones approaching towards your village and town? How will you help your neighbors in the case of cyclone which approaches in the village and the town? So how are you going to help the people? So we can help the people. A number of ways is written in your book. Number of ways are written in your book that by which you can help your neighbors. So how are you going to help your neighbors? We can help the neighbors in the following with the following points. The first is that help your neighbor and friends in shifting them the important things or important household goods, and if they are having pets, if they are having cattle, if they are having vehicles, to a safer place. So you should help them to shift the important things. Next, what you will do is communication with government agencies like police, fire brigade and medical centers and other emergency service points are as per the requirements. So we should always carry the numbers, and we should always communicate with the government agencies like which are made for the good good of the people. Okay, so if we are having the numbers, if we learn the numbers, or we should write it somewhere and keep it safely, and if it is going to help you a lot during these disastrous condition, or if you are stuck off in those kinds of places, you could just inform for the help. Next is that you could also store some safe drinking water in your with the goods which you are shifting. Okay, so why it is said that we should always carry a safe drinking water? It is always said to carry such a bottle of a store water of which is used for drinking, because during cyclones the floods also arise. Now if flooding condition happens, then it could give rise to the water could be stagnant for a longer period of time, and then it could also lead to various diseases. So various diseases will also lead to much more death which is caused by the cyclones. So these cyclonic areas will add up, means cyclonic calamities is going to add up the natural it is going to add up the dead people in the much more place where the flood is also coming because of the disease. So people will die because of the cyclone as well as because of the diseases which is caused after cyclonic effect. Okay, next is that we should always avoid the roads nearby flood hit area. So we should not go driving on the roads in the flood hit area, because if the water is present on the roads, it is going to be present there for a longer time, which may damage the roads even. And if you're driving on such a road which you'd never know that it would be damaged a lot, or the damage is less, because the water which is still present on the streets, is not allowing you to see the ditches and the holes which are present on the roads, and the accidents could happen. So these were the points because of which you can help your neighbors and your friends for if the cyclone is approaching. Next is that how will you help your neighbor in the case? Yes, this we have discussed. Then next is 7th number, what planning is required in advance to deal the situation which is created. So what planning means, this is again, it is given in your book that when self-help is the best help. Yes, just now we discussed in the things points to remember what we have learnt in this chapter. So self-help is the best help. Then there is therefore better planning in advance, and be ready for the defense against any approaching cyclone. So planning is required. The following planning points could be deal with. Okay, so the first point is keep an emergency kit at home. Then you have to store enough food and water in waterproof bags. Okay, then we have to store safe drinking water which is free from contamination, and as it could cause disease if we are going to drink water which is present which is not being in the form of drinking water because of this flood condition. Okay, next we can keep the phone numbers of the emergency services like police and hospitals and friends. And next is that making necessary arrangement to shift the essential goods. Okay, so these were the points which you could do before the approaching of the cyclones. Then in question number 8 we will see, it is one of the question which is just a means multiple choice type question. Just have to take the correct option. So the first is that which one of the following place is unlikely to be affected by a cyclone. So the options are Chennai, Mangaluru, or it is also known as Mangalore. Then it is third option is Amritsar and Puri. So the correct option will be Amritsar. Why Amritsar? Because all these are the coastal areas which is always under the effect of the cyclone, which could always be means there could be always a risk of having cyclones. Next is also again choose the correct option. Which of the following statement is the below is correct? First one, in winters the wind is flowing from land to ocean. Okay, so in the winter what happens? During winters the wind is blowing from where to where? It is blowing from land to sea. Why is it so? Then please think over it. In summers the wind blows from land towards ocean because during the summers what happens? The land is going to be heated up faster and sea is going to be heated up later. So what happens? The cold air is from the sea is going to come from the sea towards land. So it is wrong. Next, a cyclone is formed by a high pressure, means it is formed with very high pressure system with very high speed winds revolving around it. It is again false because it is created by low pressure. Okay, next is coastline of India is not vulnerable to cyclones. So the fourth point is saying that coastline of India is not vulnerable to cyclone. The word vulnerable here means it is telling you the effect of the cyclone, whether it will be affected or not. Whether it is going to affect the coastal areas are not being affected by the cyclones. Yes, they are always at the risk of affected by the cyclone. So again this is wrong. So the first point is correct. In winters the wind blows from the land towards ocean. Yes, why it is moving from land towards ocean? Because in winters it is blowing from land to ocean. Yes, the water in the land is going to be cooled up faster rate, and then as compared means it is going to flow from land towards ocean. Fine. So this your chapter is complete, and you have to solve these question answers in your book, so in your copy also, and you will write down so that it will be very much easier for you all to understand about this chapter. So with this your chapter is complete. Now in the next video I will come up with another chapter to be explained in very soon. So I'll meet you all in the next video with the next chapter to be explained. That's all for today's video. Thank you for watching.